The morning light was just starting to slip through the curtain, soft and golden. The old clock ticked quietly in the background, and there he was, my dad, sitting at the edge of his bed, back slightly hunched, one hand pressing into the mattress for balance, the other gently rubbing the back of his neck. He didn't say anything, just closed his eyes, tried to turn his head to the left but stopped halfway. It was like his neck had locked up overnight. His jaw tightened just a little, but he stayed quiet. Every morning starts like this. I stood by the door holding the cup of tea I'd just made him, and I watched like I've done so many times before. He's not coughing, he doesn't have a fever, he's not sick. But every single morning, he needs 10, sometimes 15 minutes just to get his neck moving again without pain. It doesn't look serious, but it wears him down little by little. And you know what's strange? He's always slept the same way, on his side with his head resting on his arm. He's always said, "My arm's used to it, don't need a pillow." And for years I believed him, just figured it was an old habit. But lately I've been wondering, could it be that the very arm he rests on every night is quietly pinching the nerves in his neck, bit by bit without anyone noticing? Could it be that what looks like peaceful sleep on the outside is actually forcing his neck to stay clenched? For 8 long hours, some habits stick with us from younger days. For my dad, it started way back when he worked long night shifts. He'd catch naps wherever he could, on break room benches, on buses, and his only pillow was his own arm. He used to say, "I've always slept this way. My arm helps me fall asleep faster." And after all these years, nothing changed. He still sleeps with his head resting right on that arm, neck slightly curled, shoulder tucked in. I've offered him pillows of every kind. Soft, firm memory, foam, contoured, orthopedic. He always just smiled, too high for me. My neck doesn't like it. At first, it was just a little comment in the morning. "My neck feels stiff today." But over time, those words turned into quiet grimaces. Little pauses in the middle of conversation, a slow shoulder roll, like he was trying to adjust something that wouldn't let go. I assumed it was just aging. That's what we're taught, right? Older bodies get stiff. That's just how it goes. But then I started noticing more. Every morning, his head tilted a little to the side. His right shoulder drooped lower than the left. And the simple movements, like turning his head to look at the sky, became slow, cautious, uncertain. It was like his neck had stopped trusting itself. So I did some reading, and I came across something that stopped me cold. A spinal specialist wrote, "When older adults sleep with their head directly on their arm, the weight compresses the neck unevenly for hours. It flattens the natural curve of the spine and puts constant pressure on the C3 to C7 nerves, leading to stiffness, dull headaches, and even numbness down the shoulder." I read that twice, because suddenly it all made sense. My dad wasn't just waking up sore. His own arm, this habit he'd trusted for decades, was pressing on his neck all night long, pinching the nerves, locking up his muscles. And the worst part, he didn't even know. He thought it was just getting older, just something everyone has to live with. But now I wonder, what if it's not age at all? What if it's that old familiar habit, his own arm, that's been quietly working against him, night after night? Without anyone noticing, I'm not sure when I first started noticing how my dad slept. Maybe it was one of those quiet mornings, watching him slowly lift his head with one hand, carefully, gently, only to end, like always, by massaging the side of his neck. His hands that had built things, repaired things, carried more than their share of weight, had somehow become his pillow. For the most fragile part of his poem, one evening I suggested gently, "Dad, maybe try a soft pillow. Just something to support your neck. It's not too thick." He looked off, not at me, but somewhere deeper. Maybe toward a memory, or the comfort of habit. "I'm used to it," he said. "No pillow keeps my neck straighter. My arm works better. It helps me sleep." So I didn't press, I didn't correct, I just watched. Each morning I kept seeing the same thing. He'd tilt his head to the side, rotate his shoulder to lift his neck like he was chasing comfort that never fully came. Until one night, after he'd fallen asleep, I walked in quietly with a thin memory foam pillow. Nothing thick, just soft enough to cradle the curve of his neck, right where his arm usually went. I eased his hand down by his side. He didn't wake. He just shifted slightly. And it felt honestly like watching him exhale a breath he didn't know he was holding. The next morning, while I made tea, I heard his door creak open. He walked out slowly, sat down at the table, and said almost to himself, "My neck's not stiff this morning. That's odd." I didn't say anything, just smiled, but inside something opened up. A quiet kind of hope. I kept doing it, night after night, slipping in after he'd drifted off, swapping out his arm for the soft pillow. He never asked, he didn't resist, he just let it happen, like it was always meant to be there. And then on the fourth morning, something changed. Before I could even go in, he reached for the pillow himself, placed it right beneath his neck, and gently let his arm fall to his side. He mumbled softly, almost like speaking to an old version of himself. I thought my hand was supporting my head. Turns out my neck's been doing all the work. That moment. It wasn't just about posture. It was about trust, letting go of an old habit that had once brought comfort and making room for something better. No doctor told him to do it. No article explained it. Just one simple truth. His body finally felt at dawn. Less tension, more rest. And I learned something that day. Sometimes helping someone we love doesn't mean fixing everything. It just means changing one small detail and giving them the chance to feel better on their own. One pillow, one quiet shift, one morning that begins without pain. Some things that seem small while we sleep can shape the entire day that follows. For my dad, it wasn't pain that woke him, it was what had built up over time, and all of it traced back to something simple. His pillow, or more honestly, the lack of one. For years he said the same thing. "My arm under my head is just fine. I'm used to it." But night after night, that habit was slowly making his neck carry a quiet burden, straining in silence, with no one noticing. The truth is, the neck doesn't need to carry. It needs to be carried. It's not just a body part. It's a bridge between the brain and everything below. And when your pillow doesn't lift the head to the right height, the neck steps in to hold the weight. All night long. Picture it, a tiny lever holding up something heavy for 7 hours straight. At first, you might wake with a dull ache, but over time, the neck stiffens. Turning your head becomes harder. You might feel tingling down the arm, or a low headache that greets you before your coffee does. That's when I realized, a pillow doesn't just make sleep feel soft, it lets the neck finally rest. So what's the fix? It's not complicated, and it's not expensive. Here's what matters most. Keep the head supported, not too high, not too low. And the pillow should lift the head about 3 to 4 inches, just enough to keep the neck in line with the spine. But no tilting back, no curling forward, just even neutral rest. For my dad, what worked best was a contour memory foam pillow. Soft dip in the middle, raised edges, it cradled the back of his head while gently holding the curve of his neck. No pushing, no sinking, If your loved one sleeps on their back, this is perfect. If they sleep on their side, just make sure the pillow fills the space between their head and shoulder. You want the neck in line with the back not sloping or sagging. And most importantly, don't use the arm as a pillow. It can't bend the way a pillow can. It compresses nerves, and it puts uneven pressure on the neck that adds up over time. Here's what you can use. One memory foam pillow with a gentle dip or curve, and a folded towel to raise the pillow slightly if needed. A soft body pillow, optional to hug or support shoulders, especially for side sleepers. No need to buy anything fancy, just something that stays soft and supportive all night and doesn't flatten 5 minutes after lying down. A therapist once said something that stuck with me. The right pillow can reduce neck tension and stiffness by up to 60% in older adults. It's not about brand or cost. It's about letting the neck go completely slack during sleep. That's exactly what I wanted for my dad, so I didn't say much. I just left the new pillow at the head of his bed, folded, waiting. A few nights passed. He started using it quietly on his own. And one morning, as he stood up and slowly turned his head side to side, he smiled. And then he said, "That pillow is something." I woke up and my neck felt like it floated all night. That's when I knew I hadn't just changed a pillow. I'd given his neck something it hadn't had in years, relief and real rest. That morning wasn't anything special, just another quiet start to the day. But maybe it was that quietness that made me stop at his door. Dad didn't rub his neck. He didn't wince. He didn't tilt his head from side to side like he always used to. He just got up, slowly, gently, one hand tucked the blanket, the other pressed lightly against the bed as he stood. I heard his slippers brushing softly across the floor, then the familiar sound of tea being poured. He walked out to the porch, paused for a moment, and looked at a small flower blooming near the railing like nothing had changed. But to me, it meant everything. I remembered all those mornings, his fingers massaging the back of his neck, that little cracking sound when he turned his head, and how he always said, "It's just age, nothing serious." But I knew. It wasn't just age, it was the way he slept, and every night he used his arm as a pillow. His neck carried the weight of his sleep. When I placed that soft memory foam pillow beside his bed, I didn't say a word. No speeches, no pressure, just left it there. He didn't say anything either. Maybe he was tired of waking up sore too. And then one morning he smiled. He said last night, "My neck didn't feel tight at all when I woke up." Just one sentence. But I knew his body had finally started to rest. From that day on, he never used his arm as a pillow again. If your dad or mom still rests their head on their arm at night, if they wake up rubbing their neck or quietly muttering, "It's nothing, I'm just getting old," try placing a soft pillow near their bed tonight. Nothing fancy, just one that lifts gently and lets the neck let go. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to explain. Just let them feel the difference. And maybe you'll give them a morning that doesn't begin with pain, but with calm steps, a warm cup of tea, and the kind of smile that comes from sleeping through the night. If this story reminded you of someone you love, feel free to subscribe. Each week, we share gentle stories like this one about sleep, about small changes, and about the quiet things that make a big difference. Because sometimes all it takes is one pillow to change someone's entire morning.